Welcome to the Big Idea podcast, where we focus on food. Today we're going to be talking to Stephanie Michelsen from Jellatech, so Jellatech, Jellatech, an amazing company based in North Carolina, focused on creating cell-based collagen, a key ingredient in many things, and also a key ingredient in lots of different industries, lots of different categories. So my name is Andrew Ive. I'm the moderator, discussion person for this podcast. I'm also the founder of Big Idea Ventures. So let's get into the conversation. Love to get your comments and feedback at the end via any of the platforms where this is hosted. Thanks very much. Let's get into the podcast. Fantastic. Stephanie, welcome to the Big Idea podcast, where we focus on food. You are Stephanie Michelsen. What do you say?
I usually go by Michelsen, but I think that makes it difficult to spell sometimes. So I think Michelsen is a safe choice to pronounce it to get the right spelling.
Okay, so Stephanie Michelsen from Jellatech, drum roll. Very excited about Jellatech. I've known you and you guys since, I don't know, minus day one, I guess. Let's tell everybody what Stephanie does and what Jellatech does.
Yeah, so I'm the founder and CEO of Jellatech, and we are the world's first cell-based collagen and gelatin ingredient company. And what that means is basically we grow cells in the lab, and then we isolate real collagen from those cells to make it more, sustainable, ethical, and cleaner collagen than versus taking it from an animal. So that's in super short, kind of like what we do, and we've been at it for almost 2 years now.
That has got to be the simplest explanation anybody in the cell-based industry has ever given for what they do in one of these podcasts. So let's just sort of dive into some different pieces of those very brief sentences. Collagen, gelatin.
Yep.
What is it? What does it do? Why is it important? Who cares?
Yeah, so gelatin is a derivative of collagen, meaning that collagen is the starting point of gelatin. So you can process collagen into gelatin. And I think gelatin people are probably most familiar with in things like gummy bears or maybe like Jello shots. Or if you are a hobby baker, you might use it for some of your confectionery creations. But it's also found in things like in processes like clarification of wine and beer. Collagen is widely used in biomedical applications, so like coatings of implants or injectables. You also have a lot of collagen in the cosmetic space, so you've probably seen some like collagen skin cream, and then also in materials you might have gelatin in things like photography film. So it's actually a protein that's used in a wide array of applications and processes and many different kind of industries. And it's something you definitely probably have in your cupboard somewhere without even knowing it. It might also be in like encapsulations, like capsules for like painkillers or other kind of vitamins or something like that. So it's really widely used. It's a very diverse protein. And currently, the only way we get it is by slaughtering animals.
And that was going to be my point, my kind of point two follow-up question. Take us through how the traditional gelatin collagen industry create their product. How are they doing it today?
Yes, I think, looking at animal agriculture in general, I think a lot of these ingredients and products we have are because, you don't want to waste any part of the animal. You want to maximize profit, right? And so collagen is actually, you get that from basically all the kind of inedible parts and pieces of the animal that you don't use for like the meat industry. So that's things like tendons, bones, hooves, skin, all these kind of really like tough tissues that, you don't want to like eat a tendon or something like that. Like that's not very easy to chew. And so all those pieces that don't turn into, meat that actually gets transported to a collagen or gelatin plant, where it goes through this like extensive process of like high temperatures and acid, and then it basically gets mixed and broken down to almost like a gloop or soup or something like that, and then eventually you then kind of further process it and purify it, and then you end up with collagen. You end up with collagen peptides, and you can also process the collagen into gelatin. And actually, if you try to Google, videos on how it's made, you're probably not going to find much because it's very hard to see. But it's a very nasty process that, again, kind of comes from all the things we can't and don't want to eat from the animal.
Got it. So a multi-step process.
Yeah.
Some of those steps include heat, acid, basically breaking down all of the bits and pieces that are considered inedible.
Yes.
And using and ultimately creating a gelatin out of that. Okay.
Correct.
Amazing. So now let's kind of parallel that with what you guys are doing. You are creating the same collagen gelatin as traditional, or is it slightly different in some way? Is it exactly the same? What's the deal?
So I mentioned before that collagen is basically the starting point for collagen peptides and gelatin, right? So we started out on this mission by kind of looking at animal agriculture, and I think the all protein space, like everything is moving so far. We have great alternatives to a lot of like meat or eggs and stuff like that. But gelatin and collagen is such a complex protein that's insanely difficult to kind of mimic outside of animals, outside of humans, right? So we said, okay, can we make that same collagen starting point in a way that doesn't rely on the slaughtering of animals? And that's what we set out to do. And so how we do it is similar to what would happen inside our bodies or like a cow's body. Like there's cells that make collagen, they make it and they basically secrete it or kind of shoot it outside the cell. It's a protein that helps give us kind of rigid structure. So it's all around it in between our cells to create tissues, make them sturdy. And so we're kind of mimicking that exact same process, but rather than it happening in an animal, it happens in a lab, in like a little vessel under a sterile environment. And so we only grow the cells that we need, and we make them even better at making collagen than what they would do in an animal. And so this way we can actually make a continuous supply of collagen from cells instead of from animals. And in fact, more recently we had some really, really exciting data from the lab and from our research showing that our collagen is indeed exactly the same as what you'd get to an animal, because the process is very similar. It's the same cells. We just make them better and quicker at doing what they do really well. And again, in a sterile environment that doesn't actually rely on slaughtering animals, but it's grown in a lab. But on the cellular level, it's pretty much the same process that happens.
So basically a bio-identical output. So the output is identical to what is considered traditional gelatin collagen, but not through the multi-step acid, heat, etc., not derived from the kind of more challenging aspects of the animal, like the stuff you don't want. You still have to get that first cell from an animal, though, right? Obviously.
Correct.
Okay. There are other companies trying this. They've traditionally done it outside, if I'm correct, outside of the cell, kind of replicate, the cell growing side of things. What are those other folks using to try and get to the same place?
Yeah, so there's other companies out there that realize the same potential of making animal-free or slaughter-free collagen. Traditionally, what I've seen so far is more kind of in the plant or fermentation space, meaning you use, you would engineer a plant to make, collagen proteins or peptides, or you engineer some kind of microbe, whether that's a bacteria or a yeast, and again, inserting these kind of collagen genes, and then making, part of this protein, and then you kind of have to purify it. The challenge with that, though, is that I mentioned before that collagen is uniquely found in the animal kingdom. So it's actually something that's only us, humans and animals have, and it's not found in bacteria because they're, single-celled organisms. We need tissue, we need structure. So we're multicellular, right? So it's a very unique protein. And so what they're doing, they actually have to genetically engineer it and insert, novel or new or foreign genes into it. But the challenge more so is that what you end up with there is not the full kind of bioidentical, full-length native, collagen starting point. You might end up with something like a little collagen peptides, which means you can't really process that into gelatin, and you can't really use it for the same universal applications that you can if you have the real deal, starting point of collagen. And so that's what we're making. That's why we're using cells. So to give an example, if we're producing bovine collagen, we use bovine skin cells. If we want to do porcine, we do porcine cells, human cells. So it becomes as close to, the real deal and naturally kind of occurring protein, but just made in a much more kind of efficient and clean and sustainable way.
So the other guys are using single cell processes to try and they're re-engineering those I'm just kind of clarifying if I'm hearing this right. They're re-engineering single cells using a single cell growing process to try and create a multi-cell output.
Yes.
And it can't work, can it?
So I will say that plants are also, have multi-cell,
sure.
That gets closer. But the challenge here is that it's basically like trying to, put something really foreign and unknown into this organism. At the same time, collagen is a huge complex protein. So it's really, really large. It's triple helical, meaning that it has kind of 3 peptides coming together, to make this kind of like, I guess, string of, peptides, and then more strings come together forming collagen fibrils. And so you just don't get that. You get kind of short strands. And so I made a comparison the other day to basically said collagen is almost like a spaghetti. And if you use like a microorganism, you might get like little pieces of a spaghetti straw, right? You can never go back to the full thing, like, because it's already broken into pieces. But with us, we have the real deal, and you can have multiple spaghetti strings come together to make really rigid kind of structural properties, and you can turn it into gelatin by processing it. And so, it just doesn't give the same end product, which means you just can't really use it for the same applications. There are definitely awesome opportunities still, within like cosmetics or like supplements and food, but we really wanted to target, to be able to fully replace animal, farming. And to do so, we're like, we need the real deal, because that's, we need to be able to have Haribo gummy bears or things like that. And, biomed applications. I mean, there's so many opportunities, but there's also, you need to be able to fully replace and make the real deal in order to make that kind of transition.
So your technology allows you to create the full, complete, real deal gelatin collagen. It's not a piece of or a little aspect of it's the whole complete thing. And Jellatech, as far as I'm aware, is or was the first company to use this kind of technology to deliver that kind of complete solution, right?
Exactly, that's correct.
Perfect. So so one last thing on that whole piece. The regulatory environment today that controls what can and cannot be used in the food space has already obviously signed off on traditional gelatin, collagen, the way of sort of breaking it down using acid, etc., multi-step process, animal byproducts, so on. It's been, that's been signed off decades of time ago. Despite the fact that your system is producing bioidentical products and is also in a very clean, sterile environment, doesn't involve the kind of goops and kind of less appetizing aspects of that product, it isn't approved, right? So despite the fact that it actually sounds like a lot more pleasant process than the traditional, it isn't currently approved, right?
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, we still, waiting, I guess, in different countries, right? It's different regulatory kind of organizations. So we're still waiting for that on like the cell-based space. But as you said, it's a great thing that collagen and gelatin has been consumed for such a long time that if we can show bioidentical, which we have, then it is the same thing. You know that it's safe, and we do use similar processes that you get from conventional collagen and gelatin manufacturing, except we do it, much lighter and much more efficient. And then on top of that, we have kind of an advantage that in our process, you're actually not consuming cells. You're just consuming a protein that the cells make that is secreted outside the cells. So we're able to separate, the collagen from the cells and the media, which is really, really great news for us in terms of regulatory. It might give us some kind of, fast tracking or loopholes that we can go through because of that.
How long do you think, are you thinking of that in terms of years or months or?
It probably will take a few years. The good thing for us, again, is that we actually can target a few kind of different markets or industries. So, for example, cosmetics and personal care, that's like more loosely regulated. So if we can just show that what we're making is, safe and identical to what you get normally from an animal, then likely, there's not that much more regulatory to go through. For food, there's a bit more, and then biomedical, of course, a little bit more because you might use it, inside a human body or something like that. But I think, in a few years it will definitely be, and I think for us, the main thing that we have to do is scale it, and then the regulatory will definitely come because it has to, and already we're seeing in other countries where people are actually consuming, cell-derived or cell-based or cultivated ingredients. So yeah, I'm just very excited to see it happen sooner rather than later, for sure.
So I'm remembering when we first started speaking. I was sitting in a car. I was on the Jersey Shore, which sounds like a bad TV show. I was on the Jersey Shore, having a phone call with you and Ryan Bethencourt, and I think you just finished working at Wild Earth, and you'd been sort of working very, very closely with Ryan on that, and we were sort of talking about, oh, there's this kind of big opportunity and no one's doing it, and it's huge and it's really necessary and it's really important, and there's this other company that's using fermentation and that's not really working very well, and we need to try a new approach. That was you. That was Stephanie. that was just the three of us chatting.
Yeah.
Tell us where you are now. Tell us how many team members you have, how it's going, what the company looks like today. And I think from that time you've also raised well, I know you have. I'm pretending I don't know all about you. Since that time you've found some great investors who've been incredibly supportive of what Jellatech is bringing to the world. Tell us about you, the team, where you're at. You moved from I think you were in California. You moved from California to North Carolina.
I did.
That's a big shift. So yeah, tell us where you are now.
Yeah, so I mean, I also remember our first conversations. I remember being very, very nervous to kind of talk, but also super, super excited. And now, I mean, it's crazy looking back. So that was about 2 years ago or so that we kind of started about this big opportunity and that no one was doing it, and we had a really great or unique approach to it, right? And so today we are 6 full-time and 3 part-time, which is awesome. We have our own, lab space here in the Triangle in North Carolina. I did indeed move from California. The reason I moved was because it's, you get longer runway here. It's a really great biotech hub and future food tech hub as well. Like I said, you get longer runway and there's great talent. So I was kind of already jumping into entrepreneurship. I was like, I might as well jump in the deep end even further and move across the country. But I'm really happy that I did. And, now, I mean, we have such an amazing team, and we have also raised money, of course. So to date, we raised about 2.9 total. And, Big Idea Ventures was our first investor, which is awesome, helped us get started, right? But yeah, it's definitely been a journey, but something I, would encourage anyone to pursue. If you have a good idea, definitely, just go for it, because it's such an amazing learning experience. It's challenging, it's tough, but it's also really, really great. And, we're still going strong and now seeing, collagen in the lab that didn't come from like a slaughtered animal. I mean, that's huge, right? So we know we're on the right path, and now it's just scaling left. But yeah, so that's kind of like where we are right now. And we're just about to get into our seed round of, fundraising. So that'll be very exciting to get things moving quicker and at larger scales and hire some more people on the team.
I love wandering around your lab, because you always have these amazing puppy dogs, and like there's like these little puppies running around everywhere, like yawning and stretching and attacking the employees. It's incredible.
Yeah, they're our little mascots. We're a dog-friendly office, so it's
very friendly office for sure.
Yes, dog loving.
So sounds like from a regulatory perspective, it's going to take a little time. But as you just said, you've got real collagen being made in the lab. Is it, I'm guessing you put it under a microscope. Is it identical to the real, when I say the real McCoy, I mean the, traditional product?
Yeah, it is. So we've looked at it from a couple different, angles. Initially, there's some different assays you can do that can basically stain only collagen, or it's supposed to. So we've looked at those, and we saw that it was staining it. Then we moved on to kind of the protein structure, to make sure it has structurally like the same components. I mentioned it was a triple helical, so there's a couple different components in there. It did that, and then we were like, okay, next step is kind of functionality wise, like does it gel like it's supposed to? And it does. You can actually see collagen fibrils in the microscope, which is amazing. And that's what makes collagen such an awesome protein. And so we see that. And then on top of that, collagen is very unique that it has a lot of hydroxyproline, which is one of these kind of modifications that only kind of these complex multicellular organisms can do. And it does indeed have hydroxyproline. So we kind of looked at it from a lot of different angles, tested it, and everything is ticking the boxes, being a bioidentical, real deal collagen. So our theory of, using cell ag has proven to be exactly the way to go. So that's really, really exciting.
So 12, 18 months ago, it was proof of concept.
Yeah.
Now it's real product, bioidentical, like full on. It's you can. It's not even you can do it. You've done it.
Exactly, done it multiple times.
Multiple times. So is the next stage? What is the next stage of the business? Is it figuring out how to scale it? Is it figuring out in parallel how to get the regulatory environment to kind of catch up with what's happening in the real world? I mean, I would recommend anyone on the SEC. I was going to say SEC. That was a mistake. I would recommend anyone on the regulatory side, kind of take a really strong look at this, because otherwise this technology is going to go elsewhere. I'm not suggesting you are, but there's enough cell-based companies in the US right now who are getting frustrated with the fact that it's going to take 2-3 years before they can actually do anything significant with their business. A lot of them are sort of taking a good hard look at Singapore and other places as a start point for a real business in this space.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, like you said, doing things in parallel. So we've proven we can do it. We have done it, multiple times. So we have a few different species we're working on. So primarily bovine, porcine, and human. So we want to expand on that. We want to scale it up, so make even larger volumes. We want to further optimize the amount of collagen we make. We want to, continuously kind of bring down the cost and make it more efficient. And then bring on more people, bring on more, a bigger space for us as well to grow into, and certainly begin more serious conversations with kind of like the regulatory organizations to better understand and help move the whole industry forward. I mean, it's a team effort as well. And so I think the more kind of company are in the space, things are bound to move quicker. But yeah, it's really what's next is all about scaling and getting it out there in kind of samples, and continuously getting smarter as well ourselves about what we're doing and what it's looking like, and the protein itself, because that's also something we've continued to learn. It's like you learn new methods and you learn more about it, you get it out and you get feedback and kind of see, is it something we can improve, is it great? But so far it's thumbs up. So it's just about continuously doing it larger scales and more efficiently and cheaper as well.
Perfect. So so I was going to say what's next, but you've sort of outlined, you've kind of outlined that. Do you see corporates, companies, etc., being now involved in the sort of next stage of where you're taking the company? You mentioned samples. Are those samples going out to would-be potential partners, or is it more around investors, or where are those samples? Obviously, don't tell us the names of the folks. It's probably private. But what are you using those samples for? And is that kind of what's happening next for the business?
It's definitely what's happening next. So ever since we announced to the world, I think a year and a half or so ago, kind of what we were doing, we received a tremendous amount of interest. I mean, it was just incoming, traffic, which is amazing. And at first, I think we were just like, oh my God, all these companies and all these people want to work with us. That's great. But we've kind of narrowed it down to, partners we think will help us get to scale quicker and get to market quicker. And so that's kind of what we've, prioritized. But it is indeed, it's not just, I was going to just go into some kind of VC, but it is going to partners, and future customers, right? Like they want to use it. And certainly we continue to have interest from these big global companies that have a lot of pressure and kind of are stressed to find alternatives. I mean, there's, more a growing population, there's, limited, resources, right? So we have to find new ways of getting it. At the same time, there's pandemics and other things. Like we need animal welfare as well, right? Like we can't continue to do it like this. It just doesn't work. So we have, a luxury problem where we have a lot more demand than what we can supply currently, but that's going to change as we scale. But we have our first sample going out in a week, actually. So that's super, super exciting. And a lot of these are on board with it. They're believers, they're supporters and cheerleaders in what we do, and they just can't wait till we get to scale and can offer them, kilograms and tons of this.
So in terms of the category itself, collagen, I keep saying collagen gelatin because I forgot which is the primary and which is the secondary. What's the primary?
Collagen.
Yes. So the collagen space itself, is that a 1 billion, 5 billion, 10 billion? Like what is the size of that marketplace globally at this point?
So at this point, it's about 8.4 billion, but it's continuously growing, right? So I mentioned that there's a growing demand. I think people probably also have seen even more of these, like collagen, what's it called, like smoothies and supplements, like, and in the skincare, like it is a really amazing protein, and you're seeing it probably more and more in the shelves, which means that number is only increasing. When at the same time, it's getting more and more difficult to actually source the raw materials. So we have a lot of companies coming to us as well, looking for us as that kind of sustainable, like future production of collagen that's gonna be there, because you can do it, you can decentralize it, you can do it on demand. Whereas animal agriculture currently, you're kind of limited. But yeah, I mean, it's a growing market, but it's also huge, and there's definitely room for some innovation because it hasn't really changed since like its invention. We've been getting collagen the same way for many years, and now we have a new alternative that's much, much better and cleaner. So I definitely think that it's going to continue to grow.
So I'm thinking about it. There's kind of multiple angles to this, right? One is it's a protein which traditionally uses a multi-step, convoluted, often, and I don't mean dirty in a negative way, well, I kind of do, but it's a process which is multi-step, expensive, etc. Now it's cheap, because they've used a byproduct which people want, but also it's cheap because they've got it to such a scale right now that it's just huge, right? It's just an enormous enterprise. You guys have a far simpler, far cleaner, and absolutely sustainable approach to growing this. How long, in your mind, will it take you guys as Jellatech, the first movers, to get to a point where the product that you produce is at a price point that is achievable, or at least in the ballpark of where it needs to be comparable with the traditional? And I've got a kind of part B question. I'm only going to ask it because I don't want to have an old person moment where I forget what the part B question point was. Are you able to, because you're using a different technology and an approach, to be able to dial in specific characteristics or benefits of the end product, which allow you to make it more tailored or more perfect for specific use cases? Or is it very much it's exactly the same as the original and we can't really do much with it? So can we go to the part first, which is your step is not multi-process, not dirty, far more sustainable, doesn't require acid and heat and all these other things. You would have thought it would have been cheaper, but obviously you don't have the scale. How long do you think it will take you guys to get to something that's within the economic ballpark of the traditional industry?
So that depends, because collagen is the price really depends on the source, the quality, and the application. So if you're using it for, high quality collagen for biomed, you have a really, really high price point. And so that we can certainly reach, I think, within, 2-3 years. And then after that, you kind of have cosmetics and personal care, which I'm going to give that maybe like 3 to 4. And then kind of like the food and beverage, depending on the application, we're expecting to kind of reach, early commercial scale around in 5 years time or so. And this is kind of also based on current existing processes and, bioreactors and what's there, which is all currently coming from biomed and pharma. So it's single use, it's high price point, because that's the only way, for up until now really, that we kind of use cells. And so that's changing now. So I think that this price point is going to change a whole lot in the next coming years. And then to your second point, on kind of like the tweakability of it. So because we control the whole process and it's sterile, we can indeed make, it's easier for us to make little tweaks or improvements to the protein versus, if it's a cow growing, I mean, you can't really, it's difficult to genetically engineer a whole cow. You would have to do it when it was only like in a fetus, I guess, or like in a one cell. But that's something we can do. We control the process, so it's much cleaner. And then to give you, I guess, a comparison as well. So right now you grow a cow or pig about like 3 to 5 years before you slaughter it. And I mean, that means 3 to 5 years of land, of, feed, of water, of, taking care of it from like a vet, and then you ship it, right? And you slaughter it. We right now, our production cycle is about 4 weeks, right? So that's from like, we grow our cells and then we isolate the collagen after kind of 4 weeks. Obviously it's not at the same scale, but when we get there, I mean, that's so much quicker and so much more efficient. And every cow is not the same. So when you get collagen, it's usually a mixture of different qualities of different kinds. But for us, we use the same cells. So we're always going to know kind of like the end output, which is just a huge benefit as well. And we don't have a disease risk because we're not working with a live animal. It's cells, right? So it's much safer as well. But just to draw some kind of comparisons there of kind of how we view it. But yeah, we're not at scale yet. I think when we get there, it's certainly going to be, I mean, the future of how we get a lot of the food ingredients and products around us.
So there's a number of companies in the traditional collagen category who have built themselves up over time. Spain, Germany, Asia, etc. The great thing about them is that they've built the industry. I mean, they've literally built the industry over the last X number of generations, and they have distribution, they have brand recognition, etc. Are those companies interested in getting involved, in talking, in perhaps sort of exploring partnerships, etc.? Because we've seen in the food space, certainly in the alternative protein space, the traditional food companies have either seen us as a threat or as an opportunity.
Yeah.
The smart ones have said, hey, I'm in the business of making my customers happy. If that's in alternative protein instead of traditional protein, great. Are you seeing the collagen companies out there starting to take an interest in what you're doing, potentially talking about partnerships or some form of collaboration around this new approach?
Definitely. I mean, I think we've seen both, but probably the ones that are not as excited, I guess we probably haven't heard as much from, but certainly we've had a lot of interest from them. And, we started out of this with kind of like a animal welfare and sustainability point of view. We didn't understand the supply chain really until we got started, but a lot of these collagen and gelatin plants are, as I mentioned, struggling to actually source raw material, right? So it's getting more pricey, collagen and gelatin, and there's less of it, and at the same time you have a growing demand, right? So a lot of these companies are indeed realizing like this is the future, and rather get ahead of the curve than kind of fall behind it. And I think that's exactly as you said. That's kind of what we're seeing. That's a smart choice. I mean, a lot of these businesses are built on a process that's kind of maybe, I mean, it's the only process we have right now, but maybe outdated, needs to change. And a lot of them are realizing that, and they want to get something that is a future collagen that can sustain their business, because that's what like you said, that's what they're built on. That's how they make money and how they make their customers happy. So we've definitely seen a lot of excitement around it. And yeah, so that's just really, really great to see.
If some of those companies wanted to have a conversation, what would be a good way of getting hold of Stephanie and of Jellatech?
You can find me on LinkedIn and reach out. You can also go to our website. There's a contact form that you're welcome to use, or you can email hello@jellatech.com. We go through this, I think, at least every other day or so. So that's a really, really easy way, but you're welcome to also just reach out to me directly. I'm on LinkedIn, I think I'm easy to find. So just shoot me, I guess, a DM or just reach out on the form.
I think you are easy to find, but given that I butchered the Michelsen at the beginning of the podcast, I'm not sure people will be typing it in right. So Jellatech, JELLATECH.com
Yes.
contact page. You're probably Stephanie aren't you?
I'm Stephanie.Michelsen at Jellatech.
There you go. You got to
So
create.
you have to pass. You have to do some. Yeah, it's a little tricky, but if you get through, I'm gonna be impressed.
All right. So there's so much I really want to talk to you about, because it's just such a fascinating, company, business, etc. I'm sort of also cognizant of people needing to get on with their days and things. Last question before we get into the sort of wrap up. You started the company. I don't think you'd started businesses before.
No.
What have been some of the surprises of starting your own company and sort of building a business from scratch?
So my background is in science, right? And so I remember being a little bit scared of like, how do you incorporate? How do you do taxes? How do you do accounting? And I was like, oh my God, I don't know these things. But the good thing is that those things you can actually Google an answer to, or you can hire someone that knows how to do it. I think the challenge is more kind of around the team, finding the right people, growing it and building that really healthy and productive and happy workspace. I feel like that's something that's super, super important. And I think the most important thing is to have, the right team, the right mindset. And that's something that unfortunately you can't really Google your way to. I mean, I'm sure there's some how-to videos, but that's definitely something that I think is a learning experience, but I also really, really like doing it. And like I said before, I love my team. We're like a family. And so there's going to be continuous, learning experience. But I think that was probably one of the things that, I didn't expect to, you can Google the other things, but this thing you got to learn yourself.
You didn't Google how to create a good corporate culture?
I think I probably did, but I'm like, it says so much things. And I'm like, but what about this particular instance? I'm like, oh God. So that's just what you got to learn. But I think the best way is to be humble, be yourself, be authentic, and kind of transparent, and be yourself. I think because I there's so many awesome CEOs and founders to look up to, and sometimes you're like, oh, I want to be like them, I want to be like that. When in fact, all you got to do is, you are your own individual. So, and then you just got to keep moving forward and do the best you can, and hopefully, it should work out.
And it hasn't always been easy or perfect from a team perspective. I'm guessing you've probably had to make some difficult decisions when there isn't a fit.
Definitely. That's another thing. And I think, that's, we've had to, I've had to let people go, and that's not easy, but it's you got to do what's best for, the team and the company and for that person too. And I think that's, again, a learning experience, right? It's like you have a responsibility for your team and, your investors and yourself and the mission of the company and the end users. There's so many people waiting for us to get to scale, right? And so that's what you got to keep in mind. And sometimes, it's never going to be easy. If it was, everyone would do it, right? So it's tough, but it's a continuous learning process. You just got to, do what you got to do and move on and learn from everything that you do.
And if there's not a fit for that person, it's good for them to go find the thing that's going to be their passion, their focus. Yeah. Amazing. So Jellatech.com, Stephanie, I keep wanting to say your last name with an Irish accent. I have no idea. Michelsen. It sounds so Irish to me, despite the fact that you're from the Nordics, right?
Denmark, yeah, it's Danish. Which I feel like it's not a very Danish name, but
you should talk to your mum and dad about that one. Something's going on there. You're probably from Dublin.
My mom is born in Scotland, but my name is actually from my grandma, who actually used to have a farm in Denmark. So very I don't know, we even have old milk cartons that have engraved with Michelsen. So it does come from somewhere. It's not very
God, from cows from cows 3 or 4 generations ago to some cow collagen. Look at that.
Right, full circle, but good new circle.
All right. So Jellatech.com, Stephanie Michelsen, info. Did you say hello at Jellatech?
Yeah, hello at Jellatech.com. You can also always shoot an email too.
Okay. The last question I generally ask people is, if people listening can in some way help you, what kind of help would be really valuable to Jellatech either now or in the next, let's say, 6 months? What kind of help are you looking for?
So obviously, we are about to start our next fundraise. And then I think on top of that, if you're based in the Triangle or elsewhere and you're really excited about the space, or you think you're excited to learn more about our team, definitely reach out. Or if you are, working with a company that can help sell your agriculture company scale, that's what's next for us. That's certainly something we're interested in learning more about. Yeah, or if you have, ideas or input, I'm always happy to learn and have a chat, so you can just reach out. But I think those are kind of like the main things that are on my mind currently.
And I guess if you're a traditional gelatin collagen company, and if you think that this could be an opportunity instead of a threat, to sort of offering a new additional product to your product array to consume to your clients, etc. Talk to Stephanie. I'm sure that this is a
great... we won't bite. Definitely welcome to reach out and learn more about what we do. It's pretty cool stuff.
And they have puppies running around their office space. So
many puppies. Yes, we even give them out. No, I'm kidding. We don't. It's just little Sammy who's here. He's actually not here today, but normally he is.
All right. Thanks very much, Stephanie. Really enjoyed.
Thank you.
All right. I'm going to press pause. One
Yay.
sec. If I can find that. Gosh. Okay. Stop. Thanks for coming along to today's podcast. That was Stephanie Michelsen from Jellatech. If you wish to reach out to her, please do so via LinkedIn, Stephanie Michelsen, or via jellatech.com, jellatech.com. There's a contact us page there, or email hello@jellatech.com. My name is Andrew Ive. I'm the founder of Big Idea Ventures. We're focused on solving the world's greatest challenges by finding and working with the world's best entrepreneurs, scientists, and engineers. Our first fund was the New Protein Fund, where we focused on finding up to 100 companies around the world and supporting them in alternative protein, i.e. Plant-based, cell-based, fermentation-enabled meat, seafood and dairy companies, also ingredient companies. All of those companies are doing incredible things, bringing new things to market, which are going to make this a far more sustainable planet, i.e. giving people great meat, seafood and dairy and ingredients in a way that's far more sustainable than the traditional approaches of fishing in the ocean and so on. So that's it. That's Big Idea Ventures. We're doing lots of other crazy things as well, really interesting things across the food industry. Love to hear from you. By all means, reach out to me via LinkedIn, Andrew Ive, or bigideaventures.com. So I've done my bit today. I've introduced you to Stephanie. You're the audience. You're the person listening. The onus is now on you. If you want to reach out to us, please do so. Love to hear from you. All right. Until next week. Thanks very much.